Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by Allstate and the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust, and by the support of these donors.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Univision Chicago Primera Hora, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us on the show tonight. On this Father's Day weekend, there's no better gift for the men in your family than good health. We'll take a look at the healthcare issues affecting Latino men. A boost in the minimum wage and more protections for wage workers are around the corner. Chilean singer and composer Pascuala y la Vaca brings her culture-crossing music to Chicago next week.
Going to CPS really opened up my view of the city.
And 4 members of Chicago Public Schools class of 2022 reflect on their high school experiences and look forward to what comes next. First off tonight, former U.S. Representative Luis Gutierrez and Senator Dick Durbin announced the formation of a new immigration reform organization called Our Nation's Future. At a press conference earlier this week, Gutierrez and Durbin explained how they believe the organization's mission to modernize the immigration system can help grow the American economy.
Our economic success depends on an immigration system that is as dependable as the immigrants are. Today, 9.2 million green card holders are eligible to become U.S. citizens. Think about that a moment. 9.2 million are eligible today to become citizens of the United States. And we, during the next 4 years, our goal is to help 1 million green card holders become citizens of the United States of America.
The overwhelming growth population is Hispanic. And even a conservative Republican can count. And if they can count, they know that in future elections, their fate may be decided by those same Hispanic Americans. So I think many of them are coming around to the belief that they don't want to be seen as an enemy, they want to be seen as an ally, and they are stepping up to join us in this effort.
You can find more details about this initiative on our website. This weekend, many Latinos will come together to celebrate the men who hold a cherished place in their families, perhaps presenting a good opportunity to give them a nudge to see their doctor. Among all ethnic groups, Latino men are the least likely to seek out needed health care, often waiting until it's an emergency. And with many of the health issues Latino men are most likely to face, early intervention can make all the difference in long-term outcomes. According to the CDC, the leading causes of death among Latino men are COVID-19, heart disease, cancer, stroke, and unintentional injury. Latino men also have higher rates of chronic illness than other groups. That includes diabetes, asthma, pulmonary disease, and chronic liver disease. Joining us now with more are Lisa Sanchez-Johnson, Department of Family Medicine Vice Chair for Research and Associate Professor at Rush University Medical Center, Dr. Javier Guevara Jr., a family practitioner at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and Frank Medina, a medical student at the University of Chicago and a member of Latinos United for Cancer Education, Research, and Outreach. Dr. Javier Guevara, thank you for being here, and thank all of you for being here, but I want to start with you, Doctor. What are the biggest problems you see among Latino men in your practice?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Currently in my practice, I'm working as a hospitalist in the emergency department, and we see a lot of stroke, heart disease, heart attacks, especially afflicting the Latino population, the men in Latino population. In my previous job as a clinician in the west side of Chicago with a largely Hispanic population, men were largely diabetic with complication, kidney disease, blindness, heart attacks, strokes. Typically, that's what I see and what I've seen.
Right. And Frank, what are cancer rates among Latino men, and which types of cancer are more likely to affect them?
Yeah, so among Latino men, the lifetime probability of developing cancer is about 1 in 3. But there are differences among what types of cancers are predominantly affecting Latino men. specifically liver cancer, colon cancer, and of course prostate cancer.
Right.
Higher prevalence rates of affecting Latino men. And, looking at liver cancer, while rates are similar among Latino men compared to, their white counterparts in the United States, Latino men are more likely to die from liver cancer. So those are some current rates of, different types of cancers that are affecting Latino men. And of course, it varies by, ethnicity and nation of origin as well.
Yeah, and it seems that we all have a family member who has had cancer, right? It's so common that it's come to that. Lisa, what are some reasons that Latino men might not seek immediate care?
Yes, really important that we address some of the barriers. So, it's multifaceted. One of the things is that's been discussed in the literature is just language. Language being a barrier. Sometimes just even there might be fear of speaking a certain language, and sometimes some biases that people might have if you're speaking another language that might be looked at as not as a source of strength, which it really is. Many of these individuals are bilingual. Another reason could be not enough providers that sort of match their ethnic and racial background. Not that that's the only consideration, because I think overall we need more culturally competent and cultural humility, throughout our physicians and other healthcare providers. So, those are two that for certain have been discussed in the literature and we see in everyday practice. Also, there can be sometimes fear of immigration status. And so, there's some concerns there that might prevent them from getting help. These are very busy individuals, in general. Right. Latino men work very, very hard. So, just time being a barrier as well.
This takes me to my next question, Dr. Guevara. How can healthcare providers then make prevention and screening more appealing to Latino men?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I think that the literature shows that the trust is simply not there. Typically, Latino men will trust more either their barbers or their neighbors and friends rather than their physicians. And it's rooted culturally and for any other reasons. Yeah. But I think what doctors can do is reach out to those community centers, reach out to even places of worship that people find more trust on, and try to organize events where screenings can happen, right? And education as well.
Frank, what would you say are some environmental factors that play a part of the cancer picture for Latino men?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's so much information that's readily available now that's open source, like the Chicago Health Atlas from the Chicago Department of Public Health. But, if you look at maps of air pollution in our communities, across Chicago, mainly in the southeast side, west side, parts of the northwest side, of course, the south side, and then you look at maps of distributions among, where Latine people live, those two maps overlap with each other. So, you see higher rates of asthma in those communities, higher rates of COPD, issues that affect your lungs. But then also, too, there are these things that are called carcinogens, which can be agents that can be cancer causing, that can be within these environments that are affecting the soil, that's affecting the air. So it's really kind of frightening, it's not surprising, but also frightening as well when you see how those two maps overlap with each other.
Thank you, Frank. And going back with you, Lisa, what would you say are the differences in Latino subgroups that you've seen in your research?
Yeah, that's a really good segue there. And I want to say that we see subpopulation differences across many different health issues. I study primarily obesity, and as a psychologist and researcher, we find that Puerto Rican men in particular have much higher rates of obesity compared to, for example, South American men. And a lot of this data has come from the Hispanic Community Health study of Latinos. It's a large epidemiological study that men and women were recruited from 4 different cities in the United States. So we're getting a much more comprehensive picture than we normally had. There's also differences in rates of smoking. Overall, you see that. Sometimes people can say that, Latinos don't have high rates of smoking. But if you look at those subpopulation differences, in my research, and we've done a lot of community engaged research, find that, again, Puerto Rican men having high rates of smoking than others.
We are cutting it short on time, but I want to ask, just a couple of quick questions. Dr. Guevara, what role would you say diet and nutrition play in the health of Latino men? And we're cutting it very short.
It's essential. We have to cut down on our carbohydrate intake, increase on our protein, and we definitely have to be active 150 minutes every week for sure.
Thank you so much. And lastly, we know that Lucero is hosting a Men's Health Expo next week. Frank, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. First, I want to comment on what Dr. Guevara said. Like, where's the trust, right, within the community? So, Lucero is really about bringing resources to people where they're at, right? So meeting people where they're at, where they exist, where they live, where their families are. And so on June 25th, on Saturday, from 10 a.m. to noon, Lucero is having a men's and family health fair where you can get different cancer screening tests. You can find information to get connected with a family medicine provider or a primary care provider. There's raffles that will be there, just to try to create like a fun environment for the community members. So really just meeting people where they're at. So you can find us at 9119 South Exchange at the Chicago Family Health Center.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you. And you'll find more resources on this topic exactly on our website as well. So thanks, Lisa Sanchez Johnson, Dr. Javier Guevara Jr., and Frank Medina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Up next, breaking down upcoming changes for Chicago's workforce. Some changes are coming soon for Chicago's workers. On July 1st, a scheduled increase to the minimum wage takes effect, as well as enhancements to the Fair Work Week Ordinance. Joining us now to break it all down is Andy Fox, Director of Labor Standards for the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you give us some more detail on the minimum wage increase? What employers are required to adjust their wages, and what workers are eligible?
Hi, Alex, and thank you for having us. When I think about, first off, you have to think about low-wage workers. These are low-wage workers throughout the city of Chicago, and rather than focus on the employers in the city, we focus on the worker. So if any worker in the city of Chicago performs work within the geographic boundaries of the city, they become a covered employee, and that's for non-union workers, not independent contractors. So any employees in the city of Chicago performing work 2 hours in any 2-week period. So we don't distinguish part-time, full-time for any employer in the city of Chicago.
Okay, any employer. It doesn't matter how many employees they have.
Well, that's a really good point. So there are tiers of employee sizes. So for the larger employers, anyone who has 21 or more employees, minimum wage goes up to $15.40. And that derives from the Consumer Price Index, capped at 2.5%. So last year was $15 an hour, on July 1st, now it's $15.40. For those employers that have from 4 to 20 employees, it's gone up to $14.50. For those that have less than 4 or who have subsidized temporary youth employment programs, the minimum wage will be $12 an hour, and this all starts July 1st.
Okay, that's very important to point out. What are the enhancements to the Fair Work Week Ordinance?
So the Fair Work Week Ordinance impacts 7 industries for larger employers with more than 100 employees. And there's some other qualifiers for restaurants, but previously the top tier of employment was those that earn $26 and less an hour or $50,000 and less an hour. And now that cap is at, hold on real quick, it goes up to $29.35 an hour and below, and those that make $56,381 per year and below.
And what are the employers' obligations under these laws?
Well, and one more thing about the Fair Work Week Ordinance. Employees who work for those larger employers in the 7 industries, you can find that on our website, you have to give them your schedules. It used to be 10 days in advance, now it's 14 days in advance. So requirements for employers, both in the minimum wage, paid sick leave, wage theft, anti-retaliation ordinances, as well as Fair Work Week ordinance in Chicago are required to do a few things. One, they have to put up a public notice on the premises or distribute it with paychecks if there's no place to post it. They have to pay the minimum wage. So if you don't pay the minimum wage,
right,
that's part of it. And you don't have to commit wage theft, so you don't want to steal any wages. That's part of the minimum wage ordinance. Annually, we ask and we require businesses to give out that public notice to employees to remind employers and employees, hey, minimum wage increased. And there are records that are required to be retained by employers. And also a big requirement is that you don't retaliate against workers who exercise their rights.
Since the new minimum wage and Fair Work Week standards went into effect, what has been the reaction from the business community and from workers?
Interestingly, this year more than ever, people just want to know, tell me the minimum wage, so that I can implement it. Good employers are just interested in compliance. They're not interested in complaining. They don't have time to complain. They're managing the same things we all as consumers are trying to manage, like their gas, rent, everything is going up in this economy right now. So they're trying to manage things. Just tell me what it is and what do I need to do, and we'll do it.
And before we let you go, Andy, I want to talk about the Small Business Expo the BACP is hosting next month. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Well, next week, Business Affairs Consumer Protection kind of really is the engine for small business, medium business, large business for all 77 neighborhoods. So there's a Small Business Expo Saturday, July 23rd from 10 to 2 at Kennedy King College. We're going to have a representative there. If anybody has any questions about any of the labor protections here in Chicago, I'll probably be there and/or our staff will be there to entertain questions and help people maintain compliance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And also, people can find more information on these changes on our website. Andy Fox, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex.
Back with more Chicago Tonight Latino Voices right after this.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
The composer, singer, accordionist, and pianist Pascuala y la Vaca and her band Fauna are playing in Chicago for the first time next week. It's part of their 2022 La Curiosidad International Tour. The band's music blends traditional instruments and rhythms with lyrics reflecting a feminist perspective. Y la Vaca says her hometown, the port city of Valparaiso, is a cultural crossroads that inspired her to create music that is simultaneously familiar and modern.
Because my region is culturally really rich, we were always the main port in Chile. So we received, since 18th century, a lot of people who came from the mountains and from the villages, bringing their own native music and instruments. But also we received always like all the music that came by ships from UK and also United States in the gold fever time. We were the only port to cross to get the gold. So there was a lot of cultural interchange. My music has drink that milk since I was a children, like going to the traditional parties, but also listening to Björk, and everything becomes together in this generation of 37 years old woman with also a lot of feminist ideas to put in my lyrics and to sing them in traditional rhythms. No puedes no ver mis alas. Si has de llamarme paloma. I was thinking we need to create rancheras, other boleros, other Peruvian vals, even revolutionary songs like songwriting songs that shows more the contemporary feeling of a woman who needs to make contact with the traditional culture, but also needs to feel free and respected and who wants to talk about love in a different way.
Pascuala y la Vaca y Fauna are performing at Martyrs on June 25th. You can find more information about the band and its upcoming performance on our website. Well, like all the nation's high school graduates, the Chicago Public Schools class of 2022 has spent more than half of their high school experience navigating the pandemic. But in addition to the challenges of remote learning, families impacted by COVID and interruptions to their social lives, CPS students also had to deal with contention between the Chicago Teachers Union and CPS administration, including 2 strikes. Producer Erica Gunderson spoke to 4 CPS graduates about their experiences during unprecedented time and how it prepared them for the next chapter of their lives.
High school itself, we know, isn't easy. And then add on more than 1 strike and COVID and all that, it made it seem like it was never going to end at one point.
For these CPS graduates, high school was more than a stop on the way to adulthood.
Yeah, here I am, 2 days post-graduation, realizing like it's all over. It's all behind me now.
It's where they found support and community.
There are teachers here who really care about their students, and I'm just grateful to have been in a classroom with those teachers and have had like experiences with some teachers that were just like very clearly cared about me and cared about the community.
Where they discovered new interests and talents.
You have multiple different types of outlets in which you can show your creative expression. And so that's where I feel like CPS actually does a good job.
It's where they learned more about who they are.
When I came into SURES, I wanted to major in business because that's what I thought interested me. But then I kind of struggled on what I wanted to major in because nothing really caught my attention. Like, I'm more of a hands-on thinking type of person.
And who they want to be.
The CPS in itself allowed me to start off my activism work. That led me to then create the Coalition of Advocates for Undocumented Students Education and for it to take off.
Looking back, the graduates say every aspect of their school lives was touched by the pandemic.
During the last couple of years, it was a little rough with the pandemic and online school. Especially after the shutdown, I felt a little less social. I felt like I became a little more introverted. So that's something I'm still working through and trying to get past.
I would say that COVID legitimately reduced my work ethic. Sometimes there'd be days where I wouldn't want to do assignments because I wouldn't have motivation to do them. That's when administration here introduced, I call it like the 50% rule. And essentially that's when teachers were not allowed to fail the students' assignments. That's where I feel like that 50% rule really like affects students like in this school, especially with their work ethic.
I've been playing sports since freshman year. My mom caught COVID towards the end of my volleyball season. So due to that, my volleyball season was cut short, and I was really sad about that. I wanted to try out soccer for my junior year, but that wasn't able to happen because my dad he had COVID, and then I had to quarantine basically that entire month.
Virtual learning was hard in itself, but the transition back, since our schools weren't prepared for that either, made things so much harder with teachers having to change the way they grade or accept work.
But now with their time in CPS at an end, they all report feeling ready and eager for the challenges that lie ahead.
I'm going to Illinois State University. I'm majoring in criminal justice. I'm actually very excited. I had to think about it a lot because I'm moving away. I'm going to be living on campus, but I see it as a way of experiencing something new and as a way of like making myself more independent.
I will be going to Harold Washington College, where I will be a part-time student studying computer science. I envision, having probably a career with computer science, maybe with programming, especially like something with like video games, because that's something I'm very interested in as well.
I have a summer job with the National Equity Project, and then after summer, I plan to attend the University of Chicago with a political science major. I think going to CPS really opened up my view of the city. I know so much more just from meeting people from everywhere.
I'll be going to UIC. I got accepted into their pre-health, pre-science program. I'm going to have to figure out more things on my own, and that's just my main concern, making sure I have everything that needs to be done. Very excited. I am unbelievably excited.
For Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
Wow. I'll be honest. It seems like yesterday when I graduated from high school, 1998. Incredible. Time flies. So if you just graduated from high school, class of 2022, all I have to say is congratulations. Stay focused. Time flies, and you will achieve all your goals. Believe me, you'll get there. That's going to be our show for this weekend. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. While you're there, make sure to read out our story about Illinois' new state snake, the eastern milk snake. And good news, it's not poisonous, so that's good. Looking for activities to do this Father's Day weekend? Then be sure to visit our website also, 2022 Summer Festival Guide. Now, if you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Latino Voices and Black Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. Don't forget to tune into Primera Hora as well on Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Thank you for sharing part of your holiday weekend with us. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.